Hi there, it's Sandy. I am honored to be your sister and your friend. Um, Today, I wanted to share on the topic of being intentional. And I just want to say up front, this is really just my level of understanding so far. You know that this is an unfolding journey for me of understanding God and myself at deeper levels. I feel like the scales just keep falling away from the eyes of my heart so that there's greater light that's visible to me. So today's question is, why is being intentional so important? Now, what is being intentional? It really means being deliberate and aware. And you know, being aware is what I've been talking about this whole time. Um, so, when we give intentional attention to our actions and the intent behind those actions, we become present in each moment. We see all things and all people in our life as being there for our good and for their good. Nothing is haphazard, thoughtless, or meaningless anymore. We treat every experience as sacred, holy, set apart for our enjoyment and for the benefit of the universe. So, being intentional centers us in Source. We know from experience that it's helpful to take a moment to breathe deeply, to close our eyes for a millisecond, to lift our chins when we have something hard to do. And this works whether it's something physical, or emotional, or mental. So, getting grounded and getting centered allows us to operate from awareness. So, when we're intentional, we'll find that calmness rises above our emotional thoughts and fears. The noisy thoughts that always are running through our minds are replaced with wisdom. And in that peace, we seem to know what to do and what to say and to do it with joy in our hearts. Our life experiences are not random events. The people that we interact with and the challenges that we face with them are brought to us for our growth and for their growth. The more we practice being intentional, the more amazed that we will be at our ability to discern what we know to be the right choices. And discernment always comes from the Spirit. There's really nothing too big or too small in our life to practice being intentional. For instance, as I drive, I must practice being intentional when I'm turning a corner, looking for pedestrians that I need to stop for. But because I'm being intentionally aware, I know that even if a pedestrian darts out of nowhere into the intersection, I'll be prepared to stop for him. If my boss gives me an extra job to do, I can choose to stay centered and connected to my true self. I can notice that I'm thinking how unfair it is that I got extra work to do while my coworker didn't. I can even wrap my mental arms around my negative thoughts, welcoming them and loving them. And that dispels their negative energy. And that recenters me back into awareness so that I can enjoy this new aspect of my job. So now, instead of resisting the work, I see it as an opportunity to express my creativity. And that puts me in the frame of mind to intentionally pay attention to what my boss's instructions that she's giving me so that I can ask questions to ensure my good performance. Then my thoughts are, wow, God, thank you for giving me this new part of my job. Now, I have a couple of recent experiences that really drove home for me the impact of being intentional. One of them is I have a dear relative who was in the hospital and a rehab center for over 5 weeks. And during that time, he had lost his appetite. Things didn't smell right to him anymore. That his taste buds were off. Nothing tasted good. So he was losing weight dramatically, and he was weak from the lack of nutrition. When I talked to him, I really felt the Spirit wanting me to encourage him in a certain way. And that was to receive everything in the rehab center, in the hospital, with the intention that it was prepared for his good. He needed to start believing that all the people who prepared the food had his well being in mind and they were doing their very best to help him. Then his part was to receive all the meals with gratitude for the people who wanted him to get well. And in that way, he could send a different message to his body. Instead of resisting the nourishment, he could communicate with his cells, telling them that they were to relax and receive goodness and strength as he chewed and swallowed the food. His nose would no longer be offended, and his taste buds wouldn't resist the taste of the food. My part was simple. I just reminded him that he's the observer of his life and that he lives on a higher plane, so he can send different signals to his mind and body. Over the phone, I could sense that his spirit was receiving this word as encouragement. He texted me the next day that he had eaten half of the meals that were served to him the prior day. And within a few days, he actually had eaten enough and was strong enough to be discharged home. Now, nothing else had changed in his environment. He simply became intentionally grateful and to receive everything as being for his benefit. I also had a wonderful experience with a friend who was going to give me a hug. So as I stepped forward to hug her, I noticed that she stopped for a second and took a deep breath, and then she stepped forward towards me, and we shared a beautiful hug. But I noticed that she had centered herself intentionally before making intimate connection with me. I asked her what she had said to herself, and these were the words that she had silently spoken. Alive, I feel you in my arms. Alive, I am happy. She told me that she had learned about mindfulness while hugging from the Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh. In his book, Chanting from the Heart, he wrote, "When we hug, our hearts connect and we know that we are not separate beings. Hugging with mindfulness and concentration can bring reconciliation, healing, understanding, and much happiness." He said this mindfulness can be applied when hugging a friend, a child, your parents, or even a tree. I'll put the full quote from his book down in the description below. As we live more intentionally, we'll acutely notice things that we never noticed before. We may find ourselves talking to the trees and the birds and the grass and even the ants as we walk along. We may notice a greater sense of connection to every person that we pass, even the ones that we're in the next car that we're driving past on the street. There just seems to be more life than there was when we were being distracted by the random thoughts that were passing through our minds. Our ego, which is where our thoughts come from, unless we're being mindful, they can only replay past events or project what we're dreading or what we're hoping for in the future. But when we're intentional about being present, our senses are sharpened. It may seem that we're vibrating joy and peace and love, and that those sensations are extending beyond our physical being. And most likely, there is a peaceful aura that surrounds us. Our joyful vibrations attract positive manifestations to us. And as good things manifest in our lives, our childlike nature just expects more joyful things to happen. As consciously aware persons, we see the outcomes we want before they actually appear, and this brings gratitude to our hearts. Now, if negative circumstances come our way and we feel our energy shift away from awareness, we simply need to refocus on our breathing or meditation or mantras or prayers, whatever we are accustomed to recenter ourselves. We are the observer of the circumstances that have entered our life, and we can welcome them as being ultimately for our good. They have appeared because the universe knows that we're able to respond to them in awareness. What we will find is that we can actually be joyful even when suffering. I am sorry that some of you who are listening to me today are suffering right now, and I'm so sorry about that. It's said that a phoenix can rise out of the ashes of suffering. Sometimes suffering is our best teacher when we're willing to mindfully look at suffering with the intention of moving beyond it. When we are intentional, we will not push away the negative emotions associated with our suffering. No, but we'll learn to gently embrace them like a mother embraces her child. By loving them, their energy is released and not stored in our subconscious minds. This mindful attention can actually bring us hope and relief from the suffering right away. As we practice being intentional and joyful, we are experiencing the kingdom of God within us. God has given us everything we need for life and godliness. It's all within every one of us, just waiting like a flower waiting for the petals to unfold. Thank you so much for listening. I love you so much. I love being part of God's family with you. Subscribe if you want to. Share a comment down below. I'll post again when I feel that my heart has expanded in some other area. Thank you so much. I love you. God bless you. Bye-bye.